Welcome to the Soyle Podcast. I'm Tom Elsey Ship.
I'm Jack Leeson.
And I'm SK.
And today we're going to do the horror movie bash-a-thon.
Why a lot of horror movies are bad.
Yes, because they all are. There's like
Okay.
four good.
Why
There's
all
like four
horror
good
movies
ones.
are bad?
No, I'm not calling it that. Okay, so yeah, let's just. I'm gonna cut around anyway, so it's just gonna be a really hard jump in to. Why is it that when you make a horror movie to make money, it's always bad?
Man, I don't know.
I know you don't know.
I mean, it's probably soulless, I guess. They don't get the process right because their mind's in the wrong place.
So Tom, you and I discussed Nightmare on Elm Street and its soulless remake, as you put it. What disappointed you the most about the Nightmare on Elm Street remake?
Alright, so the Nightmare on Elm Street remake made in 2010 tried to remake the same exact story with different characters. They did a lot of superficial changes. They changed a lot of the names, but they tried to keep the same core story. Other changes that they tried to make it edgier and darker. So Freddy kind of lost his humor. He wasn't cracking jokes as much. He was just trying to be a scary pedophile. And that was another change, is that he wasn't a child murderer as he was in the first movie, but he was a pedophile, and that's why the parents killed him. And then they kept changing things, like instead of the adults in the original, they went to trial with the child murderer, tried to get him, and that didn't work, so they took matters into their own hands. But in the remake, they just go ahead and just murder him. That seems a lot more irrational, and they don't really touch on that's like a dark side kind of thing of the parents, to just go immediately to there. And I
honestly didn't realize that it was that bad, but hearing it all put side by side like that, I really understand. And since Jack has no idea what the movie's about, are you reading a synopsis right now?
No, but I am just wondering if the remake is bad because the changes make the movie inherently bad, or if you went into it expecting it to be exactly like the other one.
I don't think that would have mattered if it was still good. It just wasn't good still. But
right, let's check Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sure it's going to be something in the 17% range.
And so they were going to make Freddy a pedophile in the original, but then they changed it to child murder, and that makes more sense. Like, pedophilia and murder are two completely different crimes. And it's like, that doesn't even work association-wise, because their pedophiles aren't usually violent. So there's a huge suspension of disbelief as well.
Okay, so to clear this up, the original Freddy Krueger was... Did he work in the boiler room? Did they ever say that in the first one? I don't think they did. I don't think they ever established that.
I believe he was a teacher,
but
in the remake he was just a groundskeeper.
I really couldn't.
They were in preschool.
It depends on how canon the sequels are.
See.
So yeah, creepy guy kills kids, goes on trial.
Oh wow,
gets away with it. The parents come, they burn him alive. And he comes back and haunts the children of those people that killed him in their dreams. And if you die in your dream, you die for real. The remake is the exact same, except he was just a pedophile. And you don't find out till basically the climax that he actually had done it. They thought that they were haunted by him because the parents killed him unjustifiably. Because they said that he was touching them as little kids. They're like, oh yeah, he takes us to the secret cave and he takes pictures of us and does all this weird shit. And they never proved that happened, and the parents just killed him anyway. What's the percentage?
Okay, so tomato meter is 15%, and the audience score is 43%.
It's still a Nightmare.
So we have a Rotten
It's still
Tomato.
a Nightmare. It's still a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, so people are going to like it inherently. But a good point was that, what's the actor's name? I can't remember his name. I always want to say it's Billy Crudup, but it's not, because that's not who that is. The guy that played Freddy in the new one.
It is Jackie Earle Haley.
Yes, okay, Jackie Earle Haley. He's not funny. He's not Robert Englund. Robert Englund was a very funny Freddy. He would come around, make jokes. He'd do that, the tongue shit and lick everybody and make his arms really long. Yeah. And it was fucking funny. And this is another case of where CG took the place of, practical effects, and it just wasn't good.
It's like how they remade it, and what's Pennywise was just so much less funny. I don't know if that was a thing in the 80s of horror and comedy, but it was a good balance of the elements, and this whole turn towards the dark side is just I don't know. I want more balance in my horror movies. I like that.
I think that's actually a good connection back to one of our earlier podcasts, is horror versus comedy. And in the 80s, they actually embraced the very comedic elements. They recognized that yeah, a bad horror movie is going to be funny, and we can use that to our advantage and make it funny and also make it scary. And Nightmare on Elm Street is kind of the pinnacle of that, where it's just funny enough, but in a very sycophant, horrifying way that you're like, oh, Freddy he says some funny shit sometimes, but he's still going to cut you up. I trust that he's going to fuck me up, dog.
Yeah, he seemed very, very intense, powerful demon kind of guy. And then it's the original, so you have this whole series, and they start to develop his backstory into like this horror stew of like his mother worked in an insane asylum. She was raped
he's
by
the
all
son of
the
1,000
insane
bastards.
asylum people.
His
Yeah,
mother
it's like-
was a nun working at an asylum, and she got locked in with the nut cases in this big room, just like completely laughable. 1,000 psychos, and they all raped her. And he's the son of 1,000 maniacs. And it's like, what the fuck?
But he's not, though.
He's not, though.
He would
But
still
that-
be. He would
that-
still be.
But they're showing that he
son
was
of
bad
one of
to
them.
the
It's
core.
such a nightmare image. Yeah, it's such a nightmare image, you know. Even though it's also one of those things where it's two different crimes, or like not even mental illness is not a crime. I mean, it's two different kinds of things where mentally ill people are not usually violent. That's not a thing.
Did you say being
It's,
a nun is not a crime?
No, being
He said
mentally
being
ill.
Mentally ill is not a crime.
At least, what do you call that? Institutionalized mentally
Yeah, right.
ill. But the image still is powerful, more than like a pedophile murderer. So that's interesting.
I think we're hitting on something here, and I think it's important, is that a lot of horror in the more recent era is a lot more violent, and it's not nearly as funny. And it's almost to the point where, it's the inherent shock value. It's like, it's got to be scary. It's got to be put me on edge the whole time. Otherwise, I'm not going to enjoy it. But I think it kind of comes from the people who were raised on the 80s horror movies. They're like, oh, this is funny and scary, but I want to dial up the funny. So now all those guys are making movies, and they're taking out the funny parts because they didn't enjoy them as much as the scary parts. And now we have all this like high terror gore stuff that doesn't appeal to people because it's not funny.
Yeah, it's just like, why am I watching this guy slash up a bunch of people? It's like, that's not what I enjoy. I enjoy a story with like all these different elements in play, or more creativity. It's just, I don't want to watch a guy going around killing people. I mean, I want to see like a good people fight against it. That's a story. I don't know. It's just like these remixes. Like you got
The remix.
I was looking at a list of remakes of different horror movies. You got The Omen, you got Halloween, Poltergeist, and there's this kind of like icky, kind of like they're just remaking it to make profit because they know it's a sure sell, and that's kind of icky, you know.
Was the Omen?
So you
was
like
the
go back
remake
into it
Omen
with bad
actually
taste.
good? Or actually scary? Because the original Omen wasn't scary. It was fucking boring.
I think the second one is also boring.
The Omen, yeah, the original
Maybe
Omen
the
is-
Omen's just a bad story.
There's nothing wrong with the original Omen. It's just it tries to be a drama most of the time, but it definitely hinges on he's the son of the devil, so eventually shit's gonna pop off. So nothing is surprising. It's just
I don't
Right.
remember most of it, but I also don't remember him doing anything.
Yeah, a lot of it was just supernatural orchestration, like people falling off ladders and shit, or them getting attacked by the
Right.
monkeys in the zoo, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's wild. I'm sure this was crazy to film, but as soon as I saw it in
Yeah.
theater, I was like, those are baboons, all right. I thought that I thought the remake of The Omen was actually more aesthetically pleasing. I don't think it was any better of a movie. It might have been a worse movie actually, but I like the performances in it better, surprisingly.
Even if it's just like a good remake, it's like, do I really want to? It's going to be the same story because, like, if you're doing a remake of a horror movie, there's nothing surprising anymore. It's kind of scares are already out there.
That's kind of why I thought that the remake for not Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street was going to be actually interesting because they sowed the seeds of doubt throughout the whole movie that he didn't even do it, and he's like justifiably a monster now. Like, your parents fucked me up. But you know that he's inherently evil because he's killing the kids and not the parents. It's like, if you really wanted to get at them for shit that happened to you, wouldn't you kill the parents instead?
Unless you're Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
or
unless
something.
you're like really...
I will go after your kid.
Yeah, but then that's all about like the justice of the world or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like the only way to do it is to fucking get the kids.
And then what's the moral dilemma of like Nightmare on Elm Street? It's like, don't burn down pedophiles? I don't understand. You know, it's like, what do I
justice
take away
into your
from
own
this?
hands. Even if the justice system
Or
proves,
don't.
cannot prove that someone's guilty, kill them anyway. 'Cause
You-
they're probably
you
bad.
know. You know
Yeah.
right here. You know in your heart that he did it. So kill him. Fuck him up. Get him good.
It just feels like The Purge. It's like, is that a true reflection of human nature that we
Yeah,
would just
absolutely not.
do that?
Yeah.
Because you got to live with yourself the other 364 days. It's like, oh yeah, I killed that guy on
Yeah.
Purge night. That was fucking cool. There's no ramifications to that, except for the crippling depression that it caused. My absolute overwhelming guilt because I killed my friend's dad, and I had to see him every day. And knowing that maybe someday he's willing to risk it all to kill me. Maybe even before the Purge. How would you keep track
But
of
he
all
does have
that
a nice
shit?
car.
How would you keep track of that? I killed my friend's dad. So now every day I have to hope that he's not willing to break the law to kill me. And then on Purge night, I gotta make sure that my plans incorporate some kind of backup strategy in case my friend comes after me. You killed my dad last year. Yeah, I remember, bitch. Good thing I filled my house with bear traps. And he's like, well, good thing I knew you would do that. Why would you kill your best friend's dad? I know everything there is to know about you. That's a good Purge movie. I want to see that.
I know you're really into bears.
I want to see that. I want to see that movie. Just a straight parody of The Purge.
I think a problem with horror movies in general, and I think probably the reason there's not a lot of good horror movies, and the point I'm going to bring up I think extends beyond the horror movie genre, and that is when a story is made for the sake of being a specific genre, you end up with really dumb premises.
Yeah.
So when a movie is made for the sake of being a horror movie, you end up with really just nonsensical bullshit just to get you to the point of somebody dying or whatever.
That's any Friday the 13th sequel is just
There
this happened to bring Jason back to life and now he's going to kill a bunch of teenagers and you're going to get to see some titties once or twice throughout the movie. And it's like, okay, I'll spend $8 on this. It might be worth it. Maybe.
Sure.
So What do you think that a movie like Scary Movie is so funny? Like it seems the show horror and comedy are like so intermixed.
Doesn't Scary Movie make fun of the Scary Movie tropes? Isn't that why it's funny?
Yeah, exactly.
It's that parody awareness. It's like, why is Airplane funny? It makes fun of disaster movies. It's that hyper awareness to things, and we know that it's all coming. We just don't expect it to cascade in the way that it does. It's just it plays on what we already expect, but it puts it into the light where we can say, yeah, that is stupid. But I really like the way that you're pointing it out because I feel smart because I knew it was coming. Parody is funny.
And then like parody is so random too. You can't. It's so surprising. Like horror can be surprising. Like I remember in Scary Movie, they're sitting around this huge dinner, and the guy comes with like mashed potatoes. They're all starving. And he serves it to them, but he has like Scary Movie 2, okay. And he has a tiny hand, and he just mixes his hand in the mashed potato. And nobody wants to eat it except the one guy.
In the movie, and you're like, what movie is this making fun of right now? It's got to be one of those grotesque ones I've never seen, like Evil Dead 2 or something. It's like, what the fuck? It's funny though,
but it's like
the fucked up scary.
It's a little horrifying.
That's the kind of horror that real people have to deal with. Okay, if you go to a family dinner and someone
just one finger single into the Jello, just ooh, it's good.
Over, man. You're watching it, and that's a horrific thing to watch.
Yeah, somebody puts their thumb in the pumpkin pie, and you're like, I know that I could have a slice on the other side of the pie, but I know who you are. I know what you do with your hands.
I know you don't wash your hands after you use the bathroom.
Fuck you. They might as well just walk around with wet hands and just like flick water on everything. It's like, I know those hands aren't clean wet. I know those are dirty wet, and I don't want to deal with it.
It's kind of interesting. So we're touching on like how our feelings of horror and our feelings of disgust are very intermixed. About like how something like a spider, it's scary, but it's also gross, or like gore and all that stuff. It's the body horror.
At the risk of letting Tom run away with this, but I think it's partly to do with the risk of penetration. I think something invading you is inherently gross.
Right, or your outside's going out instead of inside.
Something about things mixing that we don't like. It's like people who have the fear of like, I don't like my mashed potatoes, my peas to mix when they're on the plate together. It's some hyper extension of that.
Or like an invader, like when you have a horror movie focused around bacteria, you have the bacteria invading into your body, causing all this body horror, and I find those are really good. Like The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing. That kind of body horror was like, I don't know, it just like touches on this like primordial, like, oh god, it is, this creature is morphing into us, and it's not us, and it's all like body is forming and
ultimately
shaping,
it's the fear of the
like,
other. It's always going to be the fear of the other. It's
Right.
something I don't understand. And that's
and like the other becoming us as well, are like that the mixing of other and us,
the mixing of
like in
cultures,
The
if
Thing.
you will, is always going to be scary.
Right.
I think that's what makes The Thing a horror movie and makes a movie like Contagion a drama movie. Because Contagion is grounded in science, and we understand what it is. It's just, it's invisible. We can't control the method in which it moves, but we can try and prevent it. And nothing we can do is adequate enough to save us from it. But, you know, it doesn't have its own will. It's not a character fighting against us somehow.
Right, it's the chaos of the universe,
Right.
a little bit, or like the world, you know, disorder. And the disorder, if it doesn't have like an agent behind it, feels less scary because it's not trying to kill you, it's just doing its thing. It's like Cthulhu, even though that's little like cosmic horror blend of like agent, non-agent. But
Right. I think that's actually what makes sci-fi films inherently scary, is that it's, you know, there's chaos and there's the other and then there's the unknown. But once you give it agency, then it's a real horror movie. And that's what makes Alien different from something like Interstellar, where Interstellar is scary in parts because of its grandeur,
God.
but not
But
because the
Alien's
elements are
fucking scary.
actively like after us. Things aren't actually trying to hurt us. We're penetrating a world that we don't belong in.
Right.
We weren't, you know, designed, or we haven't evolved to exist in that place.
Fear. Wait, what is it? Beware when you penetrate into the abyss also penetrates into you.
I don't think it's
What are
penetrate.
you gonna say?
The word isn't
It's
penetrate.
not.
It doesn't. Isn't the abyss stares back?
I mean, more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah, different body parts, but same thing, same
Your
idea.
eyes are penetrating the abyss.
Okay. Yeah, sounds right.
I was actually thinking about Alien being one, but also Annihilation.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that Annihilation
yeah, I
was the other
remember.
movie I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Because that one...
That was a good one.
That one fucking scared the bejesus
Yeah,
out
that's
of me.
that's a very sublimely horrifying film. But I think, again, we fall into that line of forces versus agency.
Mhm.
What is it? It's like a meteorite or something.
Yeah, it's like some weird alien entity that's really
Yeah.
just never explained.
Right. It shows up, but it never like takes on a form where it explains its motives or anything. And we kind of get the idea in
Right.
sort of the resolution, what it was after. And we have all these
Mhm.
interpretations of what it was trying to do. And it stays in that kind of realm of, this is very horrifying in like the fear of the abyss kind of way. Like
Right.
it's inevitable, but at the same time, it's like if we could just turn around and back away from it, it might stay there and leave us alone. It's not going to
Mhm.
follow us. But it's a
And I
very
think the point
scary
of that
film.
movie, I think the point of that movie is that it actually wasn't aggressive initially, and it like all it did was sort of break things apart, right? Which is the thing that's initially scary to us while we're going through the movie. Is like it's breaking all these things apart, putting them back together in weird ways, right? And it's totally a violation of what we expect, and that's part of what's really scary about it, especially when it happens to humans, right? And then we get to the end. Well, spoiler for Annihilation. We get to the
Spoiler
end,
for everything.
and Natalie Portman it comes into contact with the alien entity thing. In fact, another one of the characters like explodes out her mouth into it. It's into a glowing butthole that then coalesces into a human figure.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah. But I think the idea in it is that the thing is not originally had any malicious intent whatsoever. It's just trying to like understand, and what it learns from humans is self-destruction. I think is kind of
Right.
the
It was
idea.
mirroring them.
Yeah.
Like at the end, it was mirror,
Yeah.
and it's supposed to be a idea that the other is you, or
right,
like
right.
that mix of other and you.
Right. And I think that's another really interesting aspect of that. I'm not sure if that's actually what I was afraid of during that. I think definitely it was more the like deconstruction of like the human form was the scariest
Right.
stuff.
Yeah. That primordial
It's
fear.
it's the
Yeah, that
unstoppable
we know
force
we're
element.
mortal.
It's doing things that we don't know how to counteract, and it's doing things that
Right.
cut to the core of what makes
Makes
everything
you
work.
human. Right.
Right. Like time is going to kill us and decay our bodies. We know that. We can't stop
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
That's one of our fears we will always have. And art is a good way of like capturing that.
Right.
But like, so why doesn't that work in a movie like the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street? Why do we still have this like suspension of disbelief? Like this doesn't tap into the fear. Is it because I know like they're trying to do it? They're trying too hard?
I think part of it is obviously genre expectation. Horror movies are the worst for genre expectations. We know every trick in the book, and like once every 20 years does a movie actually do something different that we can really say, whoa, that was smart.
Mm-hmm.
Always the double fake mirror turn.
Always the bathroom mirror scene. But I think the other thing is that when you remake a film, it doesn't matter what genre, but when you remake a film, there's expectations in that too. And it's like, how will it deviate? How will it not? And everyone has their own opinion about what makes, the best version of that. Especially when you have something that was kind of a cult classic. Because Nightmare on Elm Street, it doesn't appeal to everybody. But it was successful within itself. It was very successful for a horror movie. And it got to the point where it was so funny and ridiculous that non-horror fans could go see it and be like, oh, I've never seen any of the other Nightmare on Elm Streets. But I'll see Freddy's Revenge #5 and have a good time with it because it's my friends tell me it's going to be funny. It's kind of like when Jack, you and me, and we went to the Paranormal Activity 3 in theater on Halloween or something. And it was just, no one had seen Paranormal Activities except for me. Mm-hmm. And I walked in there and I actually had a good time, and everybody was just like, ooh, ghosts, look at this found footage bullshit. And I was like, I'm just trying to have a good time. And I think that's another layer to it, is that we expect horror movies to be bad.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate genre expectation, is that if it's not good, it's awful.
Yeah.
You have to have a really high tier movie to be a good horror film. There's no middle. There's S-class horror movies, and then there's B and below. There's
pass or fail.
No, the grading average, the curve is fucked.
Mm-hmm.
99. Everyone that's 100, pass.
I think it goes back to what Tom said about wanting a good story in the first place. When you go into the movie and it's just a horror movie, that's all you're expecting, and that's all it delivers, that's it. You're going to go in there, you're going to get the tropes, you're going to kind of laugh at it, and that's going to be it. But when you go into something like Annihilation, I was not expecting that movie to be like that. Yeah. I was expecting something the tier of like Arrival.
Yeah.
Because the trailers made it seem like it was something like that, where it was going to be super like deep psychological and moral, new, I don't know,
four-dimensional morals.
Yeah, and god damn, it was fucked.
That's great.
So I think that's another thing, is that if you go into a movie, just expecting a good movie, and then there's scary elements, the scary elements are way more scary because you actually give a shit about the characters and like what's happening, right?
I think that goes back to an adage we've discussed before with horror movies, that they always pair better with another genre, especially sci-fi. If you let sci-fi piggyback the plot, then the horror elements become secondary, but they really shine,
right?
Because you forget after a while. You're not really expecting the horror elements to come back. And even Alien doesn't stay scary the whole time.
Exactly.
But as soon as the ship starts falling apart and shit, there's acid everywhere. And it's like, okay, I'm starting to realize there's a really freaky fucking thing walking around. And we're not just in space. We're in a toaster in space. I don't like this. Mm-hmm. If I was in that toaster,
that would be a good, funny horror movie.
Okay, I want to hear.
It's like, what is that?
Okay, I wanted to hear.
Jack?
What you thought of A Quiet Place, because a lot of people watched that with the expectation of it being a horror movie, and then actually were like, "Ooh, this was good." But I think you have a different opinion.
I think that those were the casual horror fans who only see the big names. If you're a horror movie fan going in there to see a scary movie, you were like me and you left mildly impressed by the plot, severely disappointed by the scares. A Quiet Place is not a horror movie. Don't at me. Don't tell me it is. It's not. Don't even dare. A Quiet Place, more like A Boring Place. Shit is fucking
If you disagree,
boring.
Show in the comments.
Absolutely. Hit me up in the comments. I will fuck you up. This
box it out.
Fucking movie is. There's nothing wrong with it. There's really nothing wrong with it.
It's a great premise.
It's a fine premise. I actually, you know what? No. I'm taking it back. I have a problem with the premise to begin with.
What?
The monsters.
It's a little contrived.
That's yes, it's contrived. It's a very specific kind of monster, which I understand. That happens. I guess it's not anything more specific than a vampire. All the fucking blanket rules. But this monster's blind. Don't make a sound, or the monster's gonna get you. Where are they? They're just around. They're
T-Rex.
really fast because those two abilities pair really well. Being really fast and being blind as fuck.
Just smacking it.
Yeah, just fucking
Right.
obliterate yourself against a tree
Yeah.
every 10 minutes. How do they not hear that? When those fucking things
There's
just...
a reason a T-Rex, yeah. Fast.
when they crash into a cinder block fucking wall. And it's like, it could be that they use seismic activity or whatever. They do the Toph earthbending thing. I can see the ground. Well, what if I had a helicopter and hanging from that helicopter was a brick fucking wall, and it was 2 inches off the ground, and I just started clapping at one of them, and it ran face first at that brick fucking wall. Would it know it was there? Would it be able to triangulate from the helicopter? Because this seems like a powerful species that got dumped on Earth for fucks. Just to fuck with us. Like some super intelligent alien species came by and they're like, you know what? Earthlings have had it too good for too long. They hate each other. There's disease. They don't know how to do anything fucking right.
No.
Time to release the death
Space-
monster. The blind monster.
It's Space Putin.
Let's drop in the blind idiots that are really fucking fast.
Not to mention that this was made by the cute funny guy from The Office.
Yeah, what's his
And
name?
that just kind of adds another layer.
Krasinski.
John,
John
I'm not going to pronounce his last name.
Krasinski. It's Krasinski. It's very simple. It's like the easiest of that region of the world. My problem with it is that at the end, when they figure out how to kill the monsters, again, spoilers, shut up. When they figure out how to disable them with the frequency, you're going to tell me the government never tried that? You're telling me the government couldn't capture one in a concrete block and then just try every fucking frequency, and they're just like, okay, let's see how it handles Rough Rider crew. Let's play some DMX and see if it handles that all that well. Let's just fuck with it forever. It's like the 28 weeks. It's like 28 days later. You're going to tell me that the whole world government collapsed because a bunch of idiots bit each other? They're going to firebomb that city like they did in The Walking Dead, but they're going to do it about 6 fucking days before they did it in The Walking Dead. They're going to do about 2 minutes after the outbreak starts. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a guy in Oklahoma and they're like, okay, I guess we're going to blow up Denver City. It's time to fucking firebomb.
I guess we're going to blow up China.
Yeah. I find the premise of A Quiet Place laughable the more I deconstruct it. Now, if I can suspend my disbelief like an average viewer, if I could just say, hey, you know what? It's a movie, first of all, so stop being an idiot. And, you pay $12 to see this. Why don't you sit the fuck down and try and enjoy it? And I sit down in the chair, and after I'm done, fine. After I'm done being mad about it, and I watch the movie, I'm thinking, this is okay. Not scary. And that's my major disappointment. It's a drama trying to portray itself as something to be very scary, but it's not.
I like that the kids are like the protagonists because they have that helpless kind of feel to them, and that's kind of like the horror element, right? That helpless.
I have another problem.
That balance of helpless and power. Yes,
I have another problem. The deaf daughter.
Go for it, SK.
The deaf daughter.
Yeah,
she is not fit to survive. I know that the little boy at the beginning, the dumb little idiot who wants to put the batteries in his fucking spaceship so he can get killed because he can't fathom, consequences yet. He doesn't understand right and wrong and that there's danger
right.
and that death is a concept. But then there's the deaf girl who's just like, oh, I'm going to walk on the sand. That's all I got to do. I'm going to walk on the sand. I'm going to be really mad with people and give them really shitty sign language when I'm mad. You're telling me that she hasn't walked into a wind chime at some point? That she doesn't knock a bunch of shit over in the fridge?
That she would not be aware it makes that kind of sound.
I mean,
the world, I understand that the world exists and that they've created a system where everything is dampened and it's quiet enough that it doesn't bring the monsters unless somebody farts really loud.
I was going to say, how do you think they dampened the farts?
They go into a soundproof bathroom and they just let it go.
Why don't they just live in the soundproof bathroom?
Why don't they soundproof everything? Why don't they just live in that coffin where she was supposed to have the baby? Why don't you make the whole place
They could use the
that?
poop to dampen the sound.
It doesn't seem like the
if they put
monsters
the poop
eat
everywhere.
or care about anything. It's like, why couldn't you just build a fucking dome and then just...
Of poop.
Not poop. Why?
Why have poop?
Does poop have a good
It would help dampen
sound dampening quality? I'm not aware of.
It can harden. It can keep. It's solid enough.
I think it would be brittle.
Probably, actually.
You've derailed my point about deaf
You have to
children.
keep it wet.
Did I go off about deaf people before? I think I've had a problem with deaf people before.
It may have been on the Purged episodes.
I don't have a problem with deaf people. I have a problem with deaf characters who have abilities on par or better than people who are fully capable.
So, would you say that this movie was tone deaf?
That's a good one. I'm gonna
yes, I'm gonna
give you that one. That was a good one.
Yes, 1 for 12.
I'm just gonna say that going into A Quiet Place, expecting to see, the redefinition of horror is what they were calling it. They were like, oh, this is the greatest horror movie in the past 10 years. This is the scariest thing we've all seen. And it's like, have you seen a scary movie? Because I just saw it and it's not that fucking scary. It still has all the shock value of any other horror movie. The monster still zips in and out of frame. You don't get to see it till the very end, which is, I guess, kind of smart. It's the classic approach. Keep the monster off screen. We don't want to see it.
Its ear is weird looking.
It looks like the inside of a dog's ear. When you lift up the flap and you're like, ooh, gross, that's a dog ear. It just has that kind of like Halo 2 kind of sphincter shape,
Yeah.
That's like those like the worms that like open up their mouths. It's like the sphincter, kind of like Dune. And
if I had to objectively rate A Quiet Place, I'd give it like a solid but a flat 7 overall.
Wow, that's actually higher than I thought you were going to.
Overall, a flat 7. The rest of the movie's good. It's just as a horror movie, as a standalone horror movie, it's not a horror movie. Don't fucking at me about it. You know what? Good point. 6.5.
That's the score I was expecting.
That's as low as you're gonna
go. Brought me down. No, because the acting's okay.
I like the acting. Like, they had good relationships.
Well, maybe that's what they meant by redefining the horror genre. Actually having good acting.
No. You have to have good characters for that. Good characters and good acting. Because good acting doesn't do you any fucking good if the character's gonna say something stupid like "I'll be back." I'm gonna go fuck up that alien
enough.
And then he racks the shotgun, the action. any shot in any action movie can end with you racking a shell into the shotgun. Just anyone can be like, "Where are you going, Bruce Willis?" And then he'll just, and then he'll cut to the next scene. You don't need any more context. You already know he's going to fuck him up.
Or get fucked up.
Yeah. It depends. It depends on how old Bruce Willis is and if there's a younger, better action hero in the movie.
And how far into the movie you are.
If it's the first 20 minutes, he's going to die.
He's
dead. He's donezo. Or he's going to get captured, and then they're going to release him at the end of the movie. He'll come back as the long-awaited bald hero, Bruce Willis. The long-awaited bald hero of every movie.
Unless he's the main character. Then he just gets fucked up so that he can, train over the course.
Yeah, go to the hospital. His whole family got killed. And now the whole movie's a revenge movie. He's bad Liam Neeson in that case. If Liam Neeson didn't know what he was doing and Taken. I'm a man without a particular set of skills. I have $35,000 in my pension. I will give you all of that for my daughter back. We're going to sell her for $220,000. Okay, well, I can't do that. I can do $35,000. Good luck. And they hang up. And then it's just 10 years later. Liam Neeson is now adequate with a sidearm. His wife has completely left him. Rough.
I was starting to think about different genres. So, like, what if you try to take a show like Breaking Bad? Could you tweak it so that it could become horror? Like, say you're a writer and you want to try to change the genre to horror. Do you think it would work, or would you have to start from scratch again? What do you think? Or that's kind of too abstract?
You'd have to make a lot of allowances. There'd be a lot of changes. The thing is, horror is a very stripped down genre. There's only so many things we can do with it. You can't have a lot of subplots. You can't have a lot of intricate character interaction because somebody has to be disposable. Unless you're doing, one of those rare routes where people die off screen, but they don't really die. But even then, that's a cop out. If nobody dies in the horror movie and it's still scary, you've created the modern masterpiece. I don't know how you did it, but you did it. I can't think of something that does that. Not off the top of my head, because you can't establish stakes that way. Mm-hmm. The stakes have to exist.
I think horror also tends towards a very particular type of messaging. And when your story is like Breaking Bad and you have a main idea of change, essentially, I guess you could use like the metamorphosis kind of plot for it. You could tweak it that way and then make Walter White like actually get like disfigured,
like Palpatine or something.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Like over time, the dealing with the chemicals and shit, like his hands get all fucked up. Whatever else. But a big part of that plot also is how he's a fucking master chemist.
Yeah,
so
it would hard to be really good at it and fuck yourself up the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm a master chemist, but I'm clumsy as shit.
yeah. So like
The
maybe
show
he's
is
just
still so horrifying. Yeah. It's like the show is still so horrifying. And
Yeah.
It's like, why isn't it like horror though?
It's a moral
What do you think?
kind of horror. It's like no
Yeah.
one would go to those lengths until that becomes the norm of characters' behavior.
and it's you can call it a thriller because
Yeah.
characters are always in danger.
Yeah.
Right, there's always a new threat, and it's a big threat, and it hits really close to home. But you're not ever afraid that something horrific will happen. You're afraid that Walter's going to get caught. He's going to be exposed in some way. Somebody's going to get killed. You're never thinking Walter White is going to be captured and something's going to eat him alive.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think something that makes a horror movie different from a thriller is that the threat involves something horrific happening to you, like being eaten or whatever else, right? Whatever that unknown, creepy thing, disfigurement and destruction of the human form, that sort of shit.
Right, like the moral. What did you say, SK? The moral horror instead of a physical horror or something. Right. What are you gonna say?
I was just going to say that if you were going to take something like Breaking Bad and make it into a horror film or a horror series, which I don't think horror series are very good. I think that it doesn't support the long form. It's not that feasible. At that point, it's a crime. It's a crime story because how does the monster not get caught? If there's a serial killer, how does he not get caught? How do they not find the monster?
Right.
It's a crime thriller at a certain degree, and I think that's where a lot of horror movies like that fall apart. Like the crime thriller about the serial killer who's smarter than the police, and he keeps getting away with it. And he keeps leaving like cryptograms and shit. And it's like,
Right.
this is supposed to be kind of scary, but it's
Zodiac.
really not. Why is it not?
It's
scary?
too fun. It's too
Yeah,
puzzling.
because we enjoy the chase.
Thinking.
We
Yeah.
like being part of the mob.
So-
We don't ever root for the killer. Not in that instance. We would say, hey, fuck this guy. Let's catch him.
It's
And when the evidence is laid out for us,
and
it's
it
like,
seems like front
can I make a connection
Yeah.
before Carl Urban makes the connection? Can I do a really good job before they find the hangman?
and you won't.
I won't because I don't have
Not
all
if
the
it's a
facts.
good
And
writer.
Carl Urban doesn't have all the facts, and it's a bad movie to begin with. So I think that but in terms of turning Breaking Bad into a good horror movie or something close to it, I would say that the closest thing I could think of is like Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula with Gary
Okay.
Oldman. In terms of that,
They're like that change.
yeah, he's sort of that kind of the essence of perfection. He's a very handsome, very affluent individual, but there's a monster lurking behind him, and it's interesting to kind of root for him because he has like a valid motive. He gave his life and his his military career to his country, and then after losing his wife, I forget how, if she was murdered or if she was a witch or something. And then he turns his back on God after being like a holy warrior, and he curses himself essentially,
Oh,
which I don't understand.
is this Star Wars? Is this Star Wars? You just described Anakin Skywalker's plot.
Did I?
Yeah, he's a great warrior, fought everything for his country. Then his girlfriend died, and he cursed God and turned to the
Didn't
dark side of the
Anakin
Force. But then
kill
there's the
his-
puppet master.
Yeah, Anakin caused his own demise. Dracula didn't do
she
anything.
dies.
Dracula's demise was tragic. His wife was killed outside of his own control, and then he cursed God and decided to become a monster, which I still don't understand. He cursed himself. He's like, "That's it. Fuck God. I'm gonna be a monster. I'm gonna be a monster among men." And then he gave himself superpowers. He was just like, "Oh yeah, fuck this guy. I'm gonna be a bat guy. I'm gonna drink blood and shit. I'm gonna live forever." And they're like,
That guy.
and God's like, "Yeah, okay.
I don't like that name.
I allow it."
He's in
I
the
wanna see
mirror
what
trying to. I am
happens.
that guy.
But Dracula's an interesting character who has, motive and backstory that makes him sympathetic. We can say, yeah, I get it. Not quite, but I get it a little bit. Sure. If I was, a 14th century holy warrior for the Christian Wallachia, my wife got killed or whatever, I might say fuck it to God and become a monster. Cool. That's the equivalency of, Heisenberg just being like, you know what, I live my life getting shit on, and then God decides to give me fucking cancer. Fuck morals. I'm gonna sell meth.
Sees the means of productions.
It's time.
Or death.
It's time to sell meth. Make that moolah. Let God come get me when he's ready.
Moolah, baby. When I want to see a horror movie about a anything involving meth, I've never seen any kind of thing like that in a horror movie.
I was going to try and make a Heisenberg Dracula pun, but I couldn't think of one. It's very different.
Darn.
Tiger King, I think, is the most horrifying meth story I've ever seen.
That's good. That's a life is stranger than fiction situation. That's sort of that. That's sort of that, like the train crash scenario. It's like I can't stop watching. I don't understand. It's like no one pulled the brake, and the train is really, really long.
Of the abomination.
It's like 100,000 cars, and it just keeps crashing. And it's like, surely someone back there is aware that the conductor is dead and everyone's dying.
The last car, they're just like, no.
You're watching the last car. You've been sitting there for 10 hours, just like, guess what's coming.
God.
I hope you spent those 10 hours calling your loved ones to tell them that you're going to die in a horrifying train accident that should have been avoidable.
Just jump off the train.
At that point,
surely
there's such a pile. The train is going like 2 miles an hour. Or maybe it's just going off a cliff. Just fucking just for fucking 10 straight hours. You just watch the people as they go through the sublime horror.
It's a really deep
They look at the cliff and they're like, no.
cliff.
They're pulling the brake and the handles don't work. And you're just watching from the side with popcorn like, yep, you deserve this for being on the train to begin with.
Trains are the downfall of society. Says some 18th century philosopher, I'm sure.
Is that
just
Hobbes?
like bikes? I don't know.
We need to we need to make a 30-second little animation of that scenario right there.
The train.
Yes, the horror train.
It's just the train going by.
A million fucking cuts.
You understand what's going on, and then the last couple frames is just cutting to the person who's sitting there with popcorn and just says, "You deserve this."
Popcorn, maybe a corn dog.
Okay, so get back to the inspiration for this episode. Remakes. Right. The original slasher movie, which I think is where everything it's the untimely rise and death all at once. The original slasher movie, I guess, was Peeping Tom, but if we're calling it the most famous one, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho.
I love that movie.
But if we're looking at the more retro kind of 70s and 80s, we're talking about Halloween, Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street. And each of those has been remade.
Do you have a problem with Halloween remake?
I have a problem with all three remakes, frankly. We're calling the Halloween the modern slasher movie, the aimless killer who kills seemingly at random. There's a very thin moral message, but apparently was not intended by the writers, so it's just devastation for devastation's sake. Friday the 13th takes that same idea and actually gives it a moral tale. You let my son drown, now I'm going to kill all of you. And then Nightmare on Elm Street is that to the nth degree because now the monster, the killer, is supernatural. Now my retaliation is justified, but I'm also a monster. So then there's the remakes. It's funny the avenues that each remake goes. Friday the 13th went to be almost a completely strict remake. Tom, did you see Friday the 13th?
I don't think so.
I don't think very many people saw it.
It's like Freddy vs. Jason.
Oh, see, that's a good movie. That's a good horrible movie. That's an S class, B shit fest. I love that movie.
Even like Freddy vs. Jason 2.
Because it's almost is there Freddy vs. Jason 2? There's not.
Is there?
I don't think there is. Don't.
What am I thinking of?
Don't bring my hopes up like that. Freddy vs. Jason is it's almost parody-like because of its awareness of the Friday the 13th series and Nightmare on Elm Street. Let's take the two killers and let's pit them against each other. There you go, Jack, with your stupid premises. Here's the dumb fucking premise. In a world where Freddy Krueger gets out of hell for some reason. Because one of the big things, and Jack, you probably don't know this, one of the big things about Nightmare on Elm Street is that Freddy's power of invading someone's dream comes from awareness. If they don't know he exists, he can't haunt them. And that was kind of like what fueled his rage, is that, I want to be known. He wanted to be a killer in the original series. He wanted to be known as the child killer. But he wanted to keep getting away with it.
Was he possessed by some kind of demon or something? There was some kind of spiritual thing going on.
He just kept
hell.
He was a demon. He kept coming back from the dead, and he came back more and more horrifying every time. But his thing was, I have to be. People have to know I exist, And if they don't know I exist, I can't haunt them. So the premise of Freddy vs. Jason is he brings back Jason from the dead, who has been brought back from the death in every single movie past the first one, because that's the premise. Jason comes back again to kill more campers at Camp Crystal Lake. Why? I don't know. But I know I'm going to see some tits, and that's what matters. So Freddy vs. Jason is that, but Freddy's the one who brings Jason back. And then instead of sending Jason to Camp Crystal Lake, he sends him to Elm Street to start killing people so that they'll think that Freddy's back. So they'll spread the fear around, and the kids will start remembering his name.
Sure.
But he can't turn Jason off because Jason's a killing machine. And Jason loves killing teenagers. And now there's not enough to go around. And Freddy's pissed. I brought you back. You're a hungry dog. Now I gotta put you down. And they fight. Turns out Jason's too fucking strong. Too strong. Even in his dreams. Puts Jason to sleep to fuck him up. And Jason's like, yeah. Turns out I'm a psycho in my dreams too.
Who knew?
I have no weaknesses.
That's a greid movie. I'd watch that every day of my life if I could. At least once.
Let's see.
At least one time.
What about Final Destination?
Oh god, those are
Horrible.
laughable.
The first one is like interesting in the premise. It's like, oh, what if death had, agency and it knew that you escaped it and it tried to catch up. But every other movie after that, it's like, it's just the unraveling of, did he protect that person? Because in this one, the rule is that if you save somebody, you go to the end of the list, but then death is going to chase you.
Too much.
But at this time,
too much front brain thinking, not enough
core
brain.
You spend a lot of time just wondering if the movie's making sense, if it's following its own logic, and then they introduce a new rule every movie, and you're like, what the? Wait a minute, how though? Where is death?
Beautiful
Why
mind.
is the Candy Man? Why does he know all this? Why does the guy that worked at the coroner's office know this? Did he escape death? Why didn't anybody ask him? How do you know all this? Oh, I'm a coroner. I know that shit. I talk to death routinely.
They do.
They never explain it. Anyway,
It's just so fucking dumb.
the remakes.
Go ahead.
Here's my problem with the remakes. Each one, Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street, they go different avenues about how they decided to put a twist on the original.
Right.
So, Friday the 13th actually went for almost no twist. They decided, let's just make Friday the 13th 2, which is the one people liked, where Jason was actually in it. The first one is his mom. His mom kills all the campers. Really? Yeah. People forget that. People act like the first movie...
I forget it because I've never seen any of them. So.
I know that, but a lot of people forget it anyway. People who have seen it. Jason doesn't actually make a killing appearance until the second one. So they just thought, okay, you know what, fuck it. Let's skip the story. Let's jump right to the killing part. Let's get to the part where he's killing people. So the premise of the first one is, I killed all the campers because they let my son die. So the remake's premise is, I killed all the campers because they killed my mom for letting me drown. Sure. So it's basically the second one. And that was my problem with it, is that it was a straight Friday the 13th movie, but it did not do any of the goofy shit, none of the fun shit. It had an ethnically diverse cast, even for, there's a black guy, an Asian guy, 3 white people. Jared Padalecki was in it for some reason.
Oh, really?
Ooh.
There was a kidnapping for some reason, because Jason has never done that before, and he decided to kidnap somebody just for the remake. Just to stir the pot,
mix things up.
There was weed. There was weed in the beginning of the movie. A lot of weed.
Of course, there was weed.
There's some topless scene in the middle that is, as much as I appreciate it as a guy, it went for way too long, and the dialogue during it was horrible. In the 80s, you could bang for like 3 or 4 scenes, and it was just, rolling around in the bed and just, ooh, and then the creepy music would play, and then maybe Jason would walk by in the hallway. He's like, I'll kill them in a minute. I'm going to go kill the guy in the shower first, and I'll come back, and I'll javelin them through the bed. But the topless scenes in this ran way too long, and it's hard to say that, but they ran way too long, and the dialogue in them was just pointless. I wish I could.
Softcore porn.
I wish I could.
It's not even really softcore. It's like halfway between softcore and hardcore because there's actual nudity.
It was something else. But I remember the one line. I think about it every once in a while, just in the back of my mind. How did they get away with this? There's a sex scene where there's a cowgirl scene, right? She's on top, and the guy on the bottom says, "Wow, your boobs are perfect. Yeah, perfect nipple placement." And I think about that every time I see the movie. I'm waiting for that scene, not because I want to see the tits, but because I'm just thinking about it. Like, how did that guy get laid and have that thought and think he was going to get laid again? And he's cheating. He's cheating on his girlfriend in his vacation house with her downstairs, with her friend. upstairs, and everyone can hear them banging. And it's like, I don't understand. And then the movie ends exactly as expected. Everyone dies. Jason jumps out of the water. You know, that's just... So the remake there, they didn't do anything new. They didn't try to do anything new. They just circumvented all the boring parts of the original plot, which made it good. So they just like, okay, let's strip the plot. Now we're just slasher movie. Perfect.
Sure.
This is a fucking $50 million movie right here. Yes. And we discussed Nightmare on Elm Street to death already. They decided to actually add a little bit of nuance. They sowed a little bit of doubt. They did a good job of actually making that kind of make sense. But then you get to the...
Like almost humanize the monster.
And you get to the end and you realize, oh, it's exactly what we expected in the first place. Turns out that mob mentality is correct. The moral lesson I'm supposed to get from it is that if there's a guy who you think might be a pedophile because your 5-year-old kids told you that he was doing stuff to them and there's no evidence, kill him. He deserves it. Your kid shouldn't even think that. What circumstances he putting them in to even think that? Kill him.
There was actually a certain phenomenon in some part of the U.S. and history where maybe like the 80s or something, somebody was talking about it, how like there was a rumor that like nannies or these women that were taking care of kids. Okay, so like when women entered the workforce, they had more nannies, and then there were all the parents would start to have fears that the nannies would be taking advantage of their kids, and so their fears got instilled into the kids because they'd ask them like, has your nanny ever touched you?
Oh.
And then the kid would start to have dreams about it. They would create false memories in themselves, like maybe, and like, you know, kids are looking to adults to see what they want to hear. And it seems like, oh, if I say yes, they're going to pay more attention to me. And then, so there's this like vicious cycle of like fake memories and like fake accusations.
Yeah.
And that's touching on that fear, but that very interesting.
I'm sure that the creative team who brought the Nightmare on Elm Street idea to the remake crew, they're like, yes, this idea, what you just said, this idea, this is great because it sows the seeds. But then at some point, someone made the decision, you know what? Fuck it. It's Nightmare on Elm Street. No one's going to think that hard. Either he did it and he's a monster, or he didn't do it and he's still a monster. So they're going to have to kill him either way at the end. There's nothing to learn here. Fucking absolutely stupid. And then there's Halloween. No, you got a point?
I was just going to say that the moral part of that is really also embedded in the premise, in that if you have a weak premise, something that's totally just the message is just not going to be there at all, regardless. Because, so, something like Nightmare on Elm Street, where, yeah, the moral is if your kid says this, even if there's no evidence, kill that guy anyway, right? That's actually fine because all of that actually happened in reality.
You heard it first. Jack condones killing pedophiles. Suspected pedophiles.
Yeah. I'm saying the messaging as a message within the movie is fine.
Yeah, no, it's a real thing.
Like, actually comes across.
It's a real thing. It's things that happen in people's lives.
Right. And they actually kill him in real life. And he actually was a pedophile in real life. And then you get into the rest of it, which is just, you know, it's just fun horror movie nonsense. But like, say Final Destination. The premise is just, what if death... What was it?
If death could think.
What was the...
If death had like a ledger, he's like,
right,
-5 right now. Better catch up.
Yeah.
Better get those guys.
Which is a classic trope. Or like since the, what is it, Victorian, at least, you know, death, scythe guy.
Living on borrowed time. My hourglass is flipped over.
The problem is that it doesn't work that way, though. And they're trying to present it like it's...
For an atheist.
I'm...
No.
No, go on.
I'm not razzing you. Just say the people who don't have any concept of that fate might possibly exist.
Sure.
If I can circumvent my death, if it's supposed to happen, then I got a free ride until my next coincidental death happens.
That's it. Right, so what you were saying, Jack, about like if death, like as a death could think?
It's just, it's a baseless premise. It's not, what am I supposed to take out of that? Okay, yeah, what if it did, but it doesn't? So what am I supposed to take out of this movie?
There's no lesson to learn.
You know, it's different than introducing, say, magic systems or whatever else in your story, because those, generally, the world itself has kind of changed a bit. Characters are, like, behaving based on the fact that this exists, and the world behaves a certain way. And so you can kind of suspend your disbelief because of it, and so you can still get a message out of it, because you go, it's basically, if the world was like this, then, and, you know, in a realistic, believable way, you could have this sort of thing, and you still have characters who behave like humans, and
In a world.
you know, but with something like Final Destination, where it's like, oh yeah, no, the world is like this. This is how the real world is. So, you know, I guess don't avoid your fate, because it's going to come for you anyway. I mean, what is it? What is the point?
Well, what's that? What's the myth? The Oedipus prophecy. You're gonna create your own fate by trying to avoid it.
Right.
I'm sure that somebody in the previs department was like, yeah, Oedipus, that's going to make this movie. People are going to recognize that exists in this movie. You know, fate. You can't escape your fate. What is that, Terminator? You can't escape your fate.
Yeah, it's something that, like,
get to the
happened
chopper.
a lot more in, obviously, earlier stories. It's fallen kind of out of favor in modern storytelling, just because our entire society is not totally based off of
Now we just call it foreshadowing.
gods. Yeah.
Now we don't point it out at the beginning. We just kind of say, this might happen. And if it doesn't happen, you're going to be disappointed.
Oh yeah, and so the remake for Nightmare on Elm Street, I just read on TV Tropes, they try to make a connection between the Pied Piper and Freddy.
Oh yeah,
that's Freddy, right. And then they never bring it up again. It's just an abandoned arc.
Yeah.
It's like, why?
Why
did you do that?
It's a case of using a symbol once and then never bring it up again. If there was just a copy of Pied Piper in his weird little like hidey hole where he keeps all his Polaroids of the kids, that would have been fine. I would appreciate that. To get there and it's
Easter
like,
egg.
Yeah, but it's still there.
Oh,
right.
We can look at it and be like, he really is the Pied Piper. It makes sense from when he mentioned the Pied Piper earlier. I get it now. Whoa. Be like Keanu Reeves up in there. Whoa. See, if you're genuinely surprised, it's Keanu Reeves. If you're not genuinely surprised, but it's kind of amazing, it's a wow, and that's an Owen Wilson.
That's an Owen Wilson.
Wow.
So it's more of a wow.
Wow.
Instead of a whoa. No, you almost can't grasp what's happening yet. You're like, whoa. Whoa. No way. Well, Owen Wilson over there with his his biped, his big brain, he's like, wow. Understandable.
Even Bill and Ted's Keanu Reeves. Wow.
Yeah, whoa. Ted.
Oh man, that's something I'm gonna watch when it comes out.
Oh yeah,
the new version of those. Yeah,
I still have to finish.
It's a sequel or prequel or something.
It's a sequel. What do you mean? They're fucking 70 in it.
They're gonna do The Irishman with them now.
Oh. Got him.
The Bill and Ted's Irishman.
All right,
that's a good
Bill
mix.
and Ted's Irish Adventure.
The last remake that I want to discuss, Halloween. Halloween was an interesting remake for me because Rob Zombie, who directed it, and I think he wrote it, Rob Zombie has a very particular storytelling style. It's incredibly brutal. It's way over the top with the gore and the violence. Ultra violent, which was not the strength of the original Halloween. The strength of the original Halloween was you never saw Michael doing anything. He would kill people in 30 seconds, and there was virtually no blood. There isn't blood until the very end of the movie. And it's usually when he gets hurt. But this one, there's literally just people are slipping on their own blood. They're falling all over the ground because they just got stabbed, and they're running down a staircase, and it's covered in blood. Too much blood. There's no way. There's a bucket somewhere that someone's just threw down the staircase for dramatic effect. Too much. It's gross. And I tried to like it. I wanted to like it because it was a Halloween remake. Halloween's my favorite horror film. I wanted to like it so badly. And it was just so violent. And the plot was just I couldn't tell you if the plot was good. I can't objectively think about it. I can't say, is this actually better than John Carpenter's 1978 Halloween? I don't know. Couldn't tell you.
It's like we said with the pie, when someone puts a finger in the pie, it doesn't matter if the rest of the pie is good, Just thinking about that finger.
That's a great metaphor for how I feel about Rob Zombie's Halloween. and then the fucking studio decided to be a mad lad and let him do a sequel. Which was dangerous to begin with, because the Halloween 1-2 paradigm, the originals,
Mhm.
there's a very specific lore that goes alongside that. If there's a Halloween 2, it has to take place in a hospital. There's just nowhere, you can't do it any other way. So what does he do? Halloween 2, the remake, starts in a hospital as part of a dream sequence. Gets away from it 10 minutes into the movie, and now it's a year later. That means that Rob Zombie was allowed to do anything he wanted, which was the exact opposite thing I wanted him to do. I wanted him to do anything John Carpenter might have wanted him to do, which he did none of that. It was just a lot more gross, a lot more nudity. Not like the cool kind of nudity, like boobs. It was more like when a girl gets her shirt ripped off, and it's like, it's a violation.
Yeah.
It's not a sorority prank.
Right.
It's an actual violation. You're like, oh no, I feel like a party to this crime by watching this, and I don't want to be a party to the crime. Yeah. I want to watch it from my God view and say, you had it coming, you idiot. What did you think you were going to do? Bang on Halloween, you fucking idiot? The kid you're supposed to be babysitting is downstairs. You're supposed to be watching him, and right now you're getting some head, dog? No, can't do that. That's death. I hope he finds you. Michael's in the hallway. I know he is. I can hear him breathing. He's coming in. You're going to be coming? Then you're going to be going.
It's like, like you said in the originals, it has that perspective of the guy, and he says about the nipples, that it's like, so it's, you have a difference of perspectives.
Do you think any?
I don't know. It's like,
do you think anybody has ever told a dude that he has great nipple placement?
No. He said that about the girl.
I'm sure it's happened.
I know. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
I'm sure somebody in like a gym situation has been like, dude, nice nipple placement. And then it's like, everyone's got their entire body is just flush with blood. Their legs are just every ounce of blood is in your legs right now from a fucking dead squat. And you get up and they're like, dude, your nipples. And it's like, hell yeah, dude. I can't think on better than a third grade level right now, but I appreciate the compliment. And that guy just hangs out. He's just sitting in front of a mirror, He's hella jacked, but he never works out.
That's a.
You never see him working out.
I think it's a good kind of point we have there between like the remakes or the remake. I keep saying remix. The remake and the original. So the original, there's still the distinction between perspectives of like these characters and the villain, but then like these new remakes put us too much into like the perspective of the killer, and it's like, do we really want to enjoy that? And like, or is it just too horrifying, or like, is it just too over the top?
Well, it feels like it's glorifying the violence, instead of like making it horrific, right? It should be treated like it's horrific, and instead by putting it into the perspective of the killer, you're almost, as a filmmaker, siding with the killer.
Well, you make the killer cool,
right?
They're iconic, and by making and giving them, updated, cool designs for the movie, as soon as we see them go on screen, we're like, hell yeah. Kill that guy. Get him, dog. And if we're over his shoulder while he lumbers up there with a machete in one arm, we're like, we might as well be swinging the machete ourselves. Mm-hmm. But I think that's kind of that misnomer that, violent video games make people violent. This is more of just an animalistic release where, we're not beating our meat in the theater, but it's like we're beating our savage urge in the theater. And watch a guy get clubbed to death, it's like, hell yeah. I'm not going to do that, but fuck yeah. Do it. Get him. Fuck him up.
At some point.
I mean, that dude is banging. He deserves to die. I'm not banging right now. So he deserves to die. Fuck him. Get him.
And that's not really what I was getting at by saying that by following the killer, you're kind of glorifying it and saying that was a bad thing. All I'm saying is that by doing that, you're making the message of the movie be, this is fun.
It undermines the position of the true characters, whatever their moral choice is.
Right.
It doesn't. We're taking the piss out of it by saying, "Hey, the killer's cool, though."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, glorifying violence, that's been in storytelling forever since Epic of Gilgamesh and Odyssey. It's about the heroes, and they're all murderers.
Mm-hmm.
It's just on their perspective, they're the good guys.
There's a certain level of respect for it because the violence has a purpose.
Right.
It's
right.
like
It has a code,
it's like Oedipus.
Or ethics. There's more
Oedipus
behind
kills his dad, but he doesn't do it because he's trying to fulfill a prophecy or trying to avoid fulfilling a prophecy. I mean, he's trying to avoid fulfilling a prophecy, but he kills his dad because he was giving him shit. You're just a guy walking down the street, and the king walks over and says, "Get off the fucking road." And it's like, make me, old bitch. and then you kill him and his 6 guards or whatever, and it's like he had it coming. Honestly, that's disrespect, mad fucking disrespect. And then you roll up to the town and like, oh, the king just died. Funny, I just beat an old man to death.
He just died.
It's time for me to be king, I guess. Yeah, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But the violence had a purpose. I'm making it sound really fucking dumb, but I'm making Oedipus not sound like the classic it is.
It's a good essay.
But I think that's an important thing is that, we can say that the premise of something is stupid. Like the situation, God damn it. Con Air. Has anyone seen Con Air? Okay, so Con Air, Nicolas Cage he's like a Marine or something, and he gets sent to jail for manslaughter. And then the whole movie is him on a transport plane, and he's got to keep a bunch of psychotic criminals from getting back out into the masses. And John Malkovich is the bad guy. But the premise of the movie is that he got into prison because he beat up a guy at a bar and killed him, defending his wife's honor.
Okay.
But it's like, okay, it sounds kind of dumb. It sounds kind of stupid that this Marine is going to get fucking railroaded for killing a guy at a bar when clearly there was fucking people who were watching. It's like he shouldn't have gone to jail. But in the moment, you could think of if I was in that situation, if I was a patron in the bar and I watched a Marine beat a guy to death over, just some shit he was talking. It's like, I mean, that guy is a lethal weapon, though. I mean, I might do the same, but I'm not a Marine.
Right.
I would bloody the guy, and he'd probably beat the shit out of me. But Nicolas Cage killed that guy.
It's almost like people in positions of authority who have, specialized training to cause harm to others should be held to a higher standard than the rest of us.
Well, that was kind of the point. That was the point of his trial. It's like, you are a lethal weapon, and you shouldn't be held to the same standards as the average man. Thing is, he did kill him on accident.
Yeah,
but he did that move where you shunt the cartilage into the brain. Fucking killed him. Mm-hmm. He did him in. It was fucking done. The guy was dead. But I think that's kind of the one thing that we don't think about in a horror movie is that when we suspend our disbelief, we're suspending it for how stupid the horror movie is and not how realistic it might be. So the situations where somebody kills somebody and it's like, he cut his head off with a scythe. Whoa, that's fucking stupid. But in the situation, you might think, well, this guy's got a scythe. They're on a farm. He wanted to kill that guy. He cut his head off with a scythe. I mean, is it really that ludicrous to think about it?
I think most people probably would have stabbed him with the scythe, or
Yeah.
It takes some. It takes some.
I wouldn't buy a ticket to see that movie.
Ability to handle the scythe.
I want the head to come off if I'm going to pay to see that movie. I'm trying to think if there's something I can go off on real quick that I can go off for a hot minute, so I can end on some high energy.
Any Japanese horror?
Thank you.
Remake? The Ring. The Ring is a remake.
Well, there's a weird circumstance there because all of those movies, The Ring, The Grudge, all of those movies have an Asian version with Asian actors, and then there's an English-speaking version with English actors.
Right.
So it's in a weird transitional period of I don't know if it's really that good or not because there's a culture barrier. A lot of the things in the movie seem interesting and new because we don't understand them inherently in the West. And I think in the early 2000s, I think is when that was happening. That was kind of really appealing because it was mysterious in a way that wasn't any extra effort in terms of writing. It was just part of it is in Japan. The Grudge took place in Japan. It's like, okay, I have to try to suss out Japanese culture at the same time they're fighting a ghost that is an angry emotion. It's not a traditional Western ghost. It's not a sheet over the head spooky ghost. It's a I'm mad and this is my spirit, but mad, and I have to kill everyone who goes into my house because I'm mad. And I really couldn't tell you if they were good. I like The Ring. I didn't like The Grudge that much. Mostly auditorily because of the fucking noises, the cat noises and the noises. I don't like it. It's too visceral. There's too much happening. It's an affront to all senses. I'm sitting in my chair in the theater. I'm just thinking, I swear to God, if I can feel my hair on the back of my neck, I just want to go home.
I mean, isn't that the point of the horror movie?
Not to be uncomfortable, not to be I can't sit still. I understand being scared, but to feel like there's
pushed,
to feel like there's
a little bit.
I don't know, I just got a haircut and I'm still wearing the same shirt. That's not how I want to feel.
Right.
I think that's the perfect way to describe that. I don't want to be like the whole time just tugging at my shirt, hoping that I can find a position where I'm not itchy. But you know it's inevitable. The best thing you could do is go take a shower in the fucking movie theater bathroom and then beat up the next guy who walks in and take his shirt. Because you can't just walk out shirtless, and you know you can't put the shirt back on.
Put on inside out.
The thing is, if it's the grudge,
He's like,
the grudge is you extend
nipples.
it by after you beat the guy up and he's unconscious. You put your fucking hairy shirt on him, and he wakes up and he's itchy. That's the grudge.
Oh my god.
That's the grudge
This is part 2 of our premise.
Yeah.
Halloween special. Thank you.
Halloween Bashathon.
Thank you for joining us on a Halloween movie bashathon on a day that's close to Halloween. I believe it's supposed to be the 28th.
It's not actually Halloween, but you know,
That's close. I wouldn't want to listen to a podcast on Halloween about Halloween. I'd want to listen to it the day before so I could still enjoy Halloween.
Right. But is anybody
Right.
going to be
By the
enjoying
time
Halloween
Halloween's
this year?
over, you're done with it.
You know the people are going to go out anyway.
There's going to be a lot of people wearing like
It's going to be
hazmat
It's going to be the
suits.
28th. And you know what? They'll probably be safe because of that. They'll be unironically safe through irony.
What?
Because they're wearing
They're
masks.
wearing hazmat suits.
Oh.
They're unironically
Everybody-
safe, but through ironic means.
Right.
Okay, someone wrap it up.
Tom.
Check. Damn it. Well, thank you for joining us on this Soyle Podcast Halloween Bashathon.
Do you see how his
If
voice
you'd like
changed
to.
there?
Yeah.
Does everybody else here listening notice the
Comment
change?
down below if you hear the octave drop.
Comment down below. Tell us about your favorite horror films to bash on and your favorite horror films and to disagree of SK or anything to battle. I don't know. That it just wandered off that sentence.
That's okay. I understand the spirit of it. If anybody wants to fuck with me,
Yeah.
go ahead. Comments is the place for that. If you want to bring some
Check
really
us out
wrong
on-
opinions, I'll fuck you up, dog.
Leave a like, subscribe, and check us out on Anchor.
I think
Jesus.
that was very dry. There was no lubrication to that entry at all.
Why is the outro always just
I don't
the
know.
worst
Why is it a
thing
disaster
ever?
place? I just
We need to standardize something.
there is a standard. Listen to any of the podcasts. 80% of it is always there. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want. It's so easy.
Please like, comment, and subscribe, and